The man in seat 12B was worth over $6 billion, but the man in 12C only saw a target. On Austria Airlines Flight 212, high above the Atlantic, a simple request for an armrest ignites a firestorm of racist venom. Arthur Vance, a self-proclaimed platinum voyager, believes his money and his race entitle him to bully a fellow passenger, but he's made a fatal error. He isn't just insulting a black man in economy. He's insulting the man who signs the paychecks, the man who built the airline from scratch, and the man who is about to demonstrate what real power looks like. The International Departures Terminal at John F. Kennedy International Airport was a cathedral of controlled chaos. The afternoon sun, weak and autumnal, streamed through the towering glass walls, illuminating the frantic dance of travelers. It was 4:00 p.m. The beginning of the evening rush for transatlantic flights, and Gate B-24 was a microcosm of societal strata. In the priority lane, men in crisp suits whispered urgently into their phones, while families in the economy queue tried to balance strollers' backpacks and the palpable anxiety of travel. Marcus Thorne stood in that economy queue, indistinguishable from the other 300 souls waiting to board Flight 212 to London. He wore simple dark grey travel pants, a black quarter-zip pullover from a generic sportswear brand, and a pair of high-end but unflashy Bose headphones. He was tall, with a lean athletic build that spoke of disciplined mornings. His face, calm and observant, gave nothing away. To anyone who glanced, he was just another passenger. He was, in fact, the founder and majority owner of Austria Airlines, the very airline they were all about to fly. He wasn't supposed to be here. A last-minute systems failure at a code-share partners airline in Boston had stranded him. With a critical time-sensitive acquisition meeting in London the next morning, his private jet was unavailable, deployed for a humanitarian mission he'd personally authorized, and first class was booked solid. When his executive assistant, Frantic, had found a single middle seat in Economy Plus on his own flagship carrier, Marcus had simply laughed. "Book it, Jessica. It's time I checked the engine from the inside anyway." He was deep in thought, reviewing profit and loss margins for in-flight catering, when the commotion started. It began not with a shout, but with a sound of profound offense. "Do you have any idea," a voice brayed, slicing through the terminal hum, "who I am?" Marcus looked up. A man, slick and volatile, was jabbing his finger at the gate agent, a young woman named Chloe, whose name badge was trembling slightly. The man was Arthur Vance. He was a portrait of obnoxious success, a suit that was too tight and too shiny, a shock of reddish-blonde hair gelled into submission, and a Patek Philippe Calatrava on his wrist, worn less as a timepiece and more as a weapon. "Sir, I understand your frustration," Chloe said, her voice tight with practiced customer service neutrality. "But the priority boarding Group 1 is already closed. You'll have to board with Group 3. Group 3. Group 3. Vance laughed, a sound like a small, angry dog. "I am a platinum voyager. I spend more on this airline in a month than you make in a year. I don't wait in lines. I am the line. Now open that rope." "I can't do that, sir. It's against regulations," Chloe said, her face flushing red. "Regulations are for the sheep," Vance sneered. He yanked his phone from his pocket. "What's your name, Chloe? Well, Chloe, I hope you enjoy your job because I'm about to have it. I am personally friends with Julian Croft." Marcus felt a small twitch of amusement. Julian Croft was his CEO, and Marcus knew for a fact that Julian despised men like this. Vance, seeing he was losing the battle, decided on a different tactic. He grabbed his carry-on, a gleaming silver Rimowa, and simply pushed past the stanchion, shoving another passenger out of the way. "I'm boarding. Send a complaint if you want. I'll own your entire pension fund by the time we land." He stomped down the jet bridge, leaving a wake of stunned silence. Chloe, visibly shaken, looked at the next person in line, her eyes misty. Marcus stepped forward, offering his boarding pass. He gave her a small, kind smile. "You handled that with professionalism, Chloe. That wasn't easy." She looked at him, surprised by the kindness. "Thank you, sir. Have a good flight." "You too, Chloe." Marcus walked down the carpeted tunnel, the muffled roar of the engines growing closer. He wasn't angry. He was analyzing. The Platinum Voyager program is creating monsters. We're rewarding bad behavior. We need to review the metrics. We're prioritizing spend over character. He stepped onto the Airbus A350, a magnificent machine he had personally helped select. He greeted the flight attendant Evelyn at the door. She was a senior crew member, someone he vaguely recognized from a 20-year service awards banquet. "Welcome aboard, sir," she said with a polished smile. "Good to be aboard, Evelyn," he replied, reading her name tag. He found his seat 12B, a middle seat in the Economy Plus bulkhead row. Not bad. He stowed his simple backpack. He saw the passenger in the window seat 12A was already seated, a woman in her late 40s with intelligent eyes, reading a copy of The Economist. Then he saw the passenger in 12C, the aisle seat. It was Arthur Vance. He was already on his phone, his mask dangling from one ear, speaking at a volume that demanded attention. "No, I told the idiot at the gate, you never accept no from a subordinate. You just push. You always push. They fold every time." He glanced up as Marcus paused in the aisle. Vance's eyes swept over Marcus from his simple pullover to his dark skin, and in a single dismissive millisecond, he registered, processed, and judged. Vance sighed a dramatic exhalation of pure inconvenience. He didn't move his legs, which were splayed wide into the middle seat's footwell. "Excuse me," Marcus said politely. "That's my seat." Vance slowly, agonizingly ended his call. "Right. Whatever." He rotated his knees just enough for Marcus to squeeze by his tone, making it clear that this was a profound and personal insult. Marcus settled into the narrow confines of 12B. He buckled his seatbelt and pulled out a notebook and a pen. Vance watched him. "You're a notebook guy. What your laptop break, or can you just not afford one?" Marcus didn't look up. "I find it helps me think." "Great," Vance muttered loud enough for the entire row to hear. "I'm stuck next to a philosopher. Just try not to, be a problem." Marcus Thorne, the man who had leveraged his entire college trust fund into a single failing cargo plane and built an Semwa, just clicked his pen. "I'll do my best." The initial phase of the flight was defined by a series of passive-aggressive skirmishes. The armrest was the first battleground. The moment the wheels left the tarmac at JFK, Arthur Vance's right elbow established a dominant, immovable presence on the shared divider. It was a conscious claiming of territory. Marcus, preferring to avoid juvenile conflict, simply folded his arms. Vance, however, seemed fueled by the lack of reaction. He was a man who needed conflict to feel alive. The junior flight attendant, Sarah, began the drink service. She was young, her smile bright but brittle. It was clear she was new, her movements still lacking the fluid economy of an experienced crew member. "Sir," she asked, rolling the cart to their row. "Anything to drink?" "Double scotch," Vance barked, not looking up from his tablet. "Premium, Lagavulin if you have it, and don't skimp on the ice." "We have Glenfiddich, sir," Sarah replied nervously. Vance sighed a sound of theatrical suffering. Fine, fine, just make it a double. I've got a feeling I'm going to need it. She poured the drink, her hand trembling slightly. She turned to Marcus. And for you, sir. Just some sparkling water with lime, please, Sarah, Marcus said, smiling warmly. Right away. Vance watched the interaction, a sneer twisting his lips. As Sarah handed Marcus the plastic cup, Vance, accidentally, jolted his elbow, knocking Marcus's hand. The sparkling water didn't spill, but it sloshed dangerously. Whoops, Vance said, his voice dripping with insincere apology. Clumsy me. You got to be quicker than that. Marcus simply stabilized the cup. No harm done. He took a sip and turned back to his notebook. He wasn't just taking notes on the Kensingdale acquisition. He was now taking notes on Arthur Vance. He wrote Passenger 12C, belligerent, targets junior crew, possible liability issue for platinum-level members. Vance, enraged by Marcus's calm, decided to escalate. He pulled out his phone and, despite the clear instructions to use headphones, began watching a video of a political pundit shouting about entitlement and handouts. The tinny, aggressive audio filled the space. Dr. Isabella Reed, the professor in one. Warning. Flinched. She put on her own headphones, trying to disappear. Marcus waited a full minute before leaning over slightly. Sir. Vance ignored him. Sir. Marcus said a little louder, but still polite. The cabin requests that all passengers use headphones for their personal devices. Vance paused the video. He turned his head, a look of reptilian coldness in his eyes. Are you talking to me? I'm just asking if you'd mind using headphones, Marcus said, his voice even. Vance looked at Marcus. He looked at his simple clothes. He looked at his black skin. And he made a calculation. You know, Vance said, his voice suddenly low and venomous. I paid $2,000 for this seat. I'm a platinum voyager. This airline needs me. I'm pretty sure, judging by, well, everything about you, that you're probably on some kind of discount fare. Maybe a diversity ticket. In the window seat, Dr. Reed's head snapped up. That's an offensive assumption, sir, Marcus replied, his voice still dangerously calm. Is it? Vance chuckled, leaning in. Here's the deal. People like me, we pay for people like you to even be on the plane. So when I'm on board, I make the rules. And my rule is I don't take orders from someone who probably got his ticket from a welfare check. So shut your mouth and let me enjoy my flight. The silence in the row was sudden and absolute. It was so quiet, Marcus could hear the low-grade hum of the ventilation system. The words explicitly racist and classist hung in the pressurized air. Dr. Reed gasped. You can't say that. Mind your own business, sweetheart, Vance snapped without looking at her. Marcus Thorne closed his notebook. He looked directly at Arthur Vance. There was no anger in his eyes. There was something far colder assessment. You are in violation of this airline's code of conduct, Marcus said, his voice flat. Oh, am I? Vance laughed, emboldened. Code of conduct. What are you, the hall monitor? You're going to give me detention? He pressed the flight attendant call button, a long, aggressive push. Sarah arrived in seconds, her face pale. Is everything all right, sir? No, everything is not all right, Vance said, pointing a finger at Marcus. This passenger is harassing me. He's trying to tell me what to do. He's making me feel unsafe. I want him moved. Now. Sarah looked from Vance's furious red face to Marcus's placid, unreadable expression. She was completely out of her depth. "Sir," she stammered, looking at Marcus. Is there a problem? This man is making racist comments and refusing to use headphones," Marcus stated simply. "He's lying," Vance shouted, drawing the attention of the surrounding rows. "He threatened me. I am a platinum voyager. What's his status, huh? Check his status. I demand you move him to the back of the plane. Put him with the rest of the cargo." The final word was delivered with a smirk. Sarah was frozen. This was not in her training manual. She looked desperately down the aisle for her senior Evelyn, but she was nowhere to be seen. "Sir, Mr. Vance," Sarah said, "we can't just move a passenger." "Can't you?" Vance sneered. "I'll tell you what. You either move him, or I will make a scene so colossal that this airline will be paying for it for a year. I'll post this on every social media platform. I'll call Julian Croft personally. Do you want that on your record, Sarah?" He had read her name tag. It was a power move designed to intimidate. It worked. Sarah looked at Marcus, her eyes pleading. "Sir, perhaps, would you be willing to take a seat in the rear galley? Just to de-escalate." Marcus looked at her. He saw her fear. He saw her total inability to manage the situation, not because she was weak, but because she was untrained and unsupported. "You're asking the victim of the harassment to move," Marcus said, not as an accusation, but as a statement of fact. I just want to calm the situation." Sarah was on the verge of tears. "No," Marcus said, his voice final. "I am in my ticketed seat. I will not be moved." Vance's eyes lit up with a furious, triumphant fire. "Then you've heard him. He's refusing a crew instruction. Get the air marshal. Have him arrested when we land." The situation had now escalated from a disturbance to a full-blown security threat, all manufactured by Vance. "I'll go get my supervisor," Sarah whispered, and she fled. Vance leaned back in his seat, triumphant. He crossed his arms, the picture of a man who had won. He winked at Marcus. "Wrong tree, pal. You just barked up the wrong tree." 10 minutes passed. They were 10 of the longest minutes in Sarah's fledgling career. She had retreated to the forward galley where Evelyn, the senior flight attendant, was calmly inventorying duty-free cosmetics. "Evelyn, I have a situation," Sarah whispered, her voice cracking. Evelyn looked up, her practiced warm smile not wavering. "Deep breath, dear. What kind of situation? Medical, mechanical? A passenger? 12C. He's awful. He's a platinum voyager, and he's being, I think, racist to the man in 12B. He's demanding I move 12B, and 12B, who is being perfectly polite, is refusing, and 12C is threatening to call the CEO, and I didn't know what to do." Evelyn's smile lost its warmth, replaced by a focused professional mask. She had been flying for 22 years. She had seen everything. 12C. Platinum. Let me guess. Reddish hair suit, looks like he's about to have an aneurysm. Yes, that's him. Mr. Vance? Evelyn sighed. He's a red flag passenger. Always complains, always demands a refund, but spends just enough that corporate keeps comping him. He's a bully. And who is he bothering? The gentleman in 12B, a black man, very quiet, just reading his notebook. Right, Evelyn said, hanging her apron. Standard procedure. We support the crew de-escalate the aggressor and protect the other passengers. You offered to move the passenger in 12B. Yes, but he refused, as is his right, Evelyn said. You don't move the victim. You contain the problem. Watch and learn. Back in row 12, Vance was enjoying his victory. He had put his video back on this time with the volume even louder. He had ordered another double scotch from a different attendant, and he was accidentally letting his leg press firmly into Marcus's space. Marcus, for his part, was writing. He was now detailing a complete failure in Astria's customer service protocol. Training gap. De-escalation. Crew is not empowered to handle high-value, bully passengers. They default to appeasing the aggressor. This is a lawsuit waiting to happen. Evelyn appeared in the aisle. Her presence was a stark contrast to Sarah's. Where Sarah was a fluttering bird, Evelyn was a lighthouse. "Gentlemen," she said, her voice pitched low, but radiating authority that cut through the engine's drone. Vance immediately paused his video. "It's about time. Is Sarah back there, crying, 'I need this man'?" He jabbed his thumb at Marcus. "Moved. He is a menace." Evelyn smiled a thin, polished, reptilian smile that held no warmth. "Mr. Vance, we meet again. I was on your flight to Dubai last year. I remember you." Vance's arrogance flickered. He didn't like being remembered by staff. "Oh, right. Well, then you know I'm a valuable customer. So move." "Him." "Sir," Evelyn said, turning her body slightly to address Marcus. "I apologize for this disturbance. My colleague tells me this passenger is bothering you." Vance exploded. "Bothering him! He is bothering me. He's the one who started it. He's uncooperative." Evelyn did not flinch. "Mr. Vance, several passengers have corroborated that you are using loud, racially charged and abusive language. That is a violation of our code of conduct, not his." The color drained from Vance's face, replaced by a purple, throbbing rage. "How dare you! You're taking his side, a nobody, against a platinum Voyager. Do you know who I am?" "I do," Evelyn said, her voice dropping a full octave. "You're Arthur Vance of Vance Consulting, and you are currently in breach of federal aviation regulations regarding crew interference and passenger-on-passenger harassment." You... Vance was sputtering. He was losing control, the one thing he couldn't stand. He fumbled for his wallet, yanked out his black, metallic, platinum Voyager card, and thrust it in her face. This is who I am. This card owns you. I want your name. I want your supervisor's name. I am calling Julian Croft the second we land, and I'm not just having you fired. I'm suing this entire pathetic airline for defamation and harassment." Dr. Reed from the window seat suddenly spoke up. "I'm a witness, and this man," she pointed to Vance, "is the only one harassing anyone. He called Mr. Thorne well, the language was unconscionable, and he threatened the other flight attendant." "Shut up, you old hag!" Vance shrieked. That was the line. Evelyn's face went from stern to arctic. "Mr. Vance, that is enough. I am officially giving you your final warning. You will not speak to me or to any other passenger like that again. You will put in your headphones, and you will not say another word. If you violate this instruction, I will have the captain divert this flight to the nearest airport, where you will be met by law enforcement. Do I make myself clear?" Vance stared at her, his mouth opening and closing. He had been cornered. He hadn't expected this. He hadn't expected her. He snatched his card back. With a look of pure, unadulterated hatred, he jammed his headphones into his ears, turned to face the aisle, and went rigid with fury. Evelyn held his gaze for a full 5 seconds before he broke contact. She then turned to Marcus. "Sir, I am deeply sorry for the behavior of our passenger. We don't have a spare seat in this cabin, or I would offer to move you. I am fine where I am. Evelyn. Marcus said, his voice quiet. He'd been watching her, impressed. Evelyn, 22 years. Promotable. Head of in-flight training. You handled that perfectly. Evelyn blinked. The compliment coming from a passenger he had just seen racially abused was unexpected. Thank you, sir. Please, press your call button if you need anything. Anything at all. I will. Evelyn nodded and walked away, her back straight. As she passed the galley, Sarah looked at her with wide, admiring eyes. That was amazing. That, Evelyn said, refilling a water pitcher, is what we do. We are not waitresses. We are security. Never forget that. But as she hung her jacket, Evelyn was troubled. The man in 12B, he had been too calm, too controlled, and he had used her name before she had approached him back at the boarding door. She'd thought he just read her name tag. But his voice, his eyes. No, she thought. It couldn't be. Marcus Thorne was a legend in the company, but he was a recluse. He hadn't been seen at a public staff event in years. He was just a face on the intranet, a signature on the bonus checks. He flew private. Still. She went to the crew's communications terminal. She typed in the passenger manifest. Seat 12B, Thorne Marcus. Her blood ran cold. She looked at the internal alerts. There was no HR flag, no CEO flag. He was booked on a standard, full-fare economy ticket. Bought just 6 hours ago, it was him. The founder of the airline, the man who owned the entire company, was sitting in a middle seat in Economy Plus, and he had just been racially assaulted by a platinum voyager. Estando, she typed a code founder's flight alert, a high-priority encrypted message direct to the operations center and the mobile phone of the CEO, Julian Croft. The message was simple. Founder on board FLT 212. Seat 12B. Passenger 12C. Vance Arthur has engaged in racist harassment and threats. Situation contained by crew. Recommend security. Meet flight at LHR. Urgent. Across the Atlantic, on a golf course in Surrey, Julian Croft's phone buzzed with a sound he hadn't heard in 3 years. He abandoned his putt. For the next 4 hours, the flight proceeded with a tension so thick it was almost a physical presence. Arthur Vance sat rigidly facing the aisle, his entire body a monument to his own rage. He didn't sleep. He didn't watch a movie. He just stewed, radiating a toxic energy that made the entire row feel like a demilitarized zone. Dr. Reed tried to read, but Marcus could see her scanning the same page over and over. Marcus, however, was productive. He closed his notebook on the Kensingdale acquisition and opened a new one. On the first page, he wrote Project Sentinel. He began to outline a new protocol, a digital, discreet way for flight attendants to flag abusive passengers, not just for security, but for corporate. He sketched out a system where a high-value, platinum voyager like Vance could have his status suspended mid-flight by a senior crew member pending review. He designed a passenger bill of rights to be printed on every seat back. He was in effect dismantling the very system that had empowered Arthur Vance, all while sitting 10 inches away from him. Midway through the flight, he felt the need to stretch his legs. He also needed to speak to Evelyn. He gently tapped Dr. Reed on the shoulder. "Excuse me, ma'am. I need to get up." Vance, sensing movement, turned his head. His eyes were bloodshot. As Marcus squeezed past him into the aisle, Vance muttered just loud enough for him to hear, "Disgusting." Marcus ignored it. He walked to the rear galley. Evelyn was there, sorting tea bags. When she saw him, she immediately put the kettle down and faced him, her posture almost military. "Mr. Thorne," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Evelyn," Marcus replied, giving her a small smile. "Thank you for the discretion." "Sir, I cannot. The behavior of that man. I have already alerted the ground. Security will be waiting. We can have him arrested on arrival for anything you want. Hate-motivated intimidation, interference with a flight crew." Marcus held up a hand. "Yes, Evelyn, you did your job, and you did it well, but I don't want him arrested." Evelyn was stunned. "Sir, arresting him makes this a public spectacle. It becomes his word against mine. He'll claim he was the victim. It becomes a mess. I'm not interested in a mess. I'm interested in a solution." "A solution, sir?" "When we land," Marcus said, "I need you to do something specific. I need you to retrieve Mr. Vance. But I also need you to retrieve Dr. Reed from 12A. Tell her we need her as a witness for an internal review. But do not," he stressed, "let them go to the regular terminal." He saw the forward galley open, and Sarah, the junior attendant, came in, her eyes wide. She saw Marcus speaking with Evelyn, and froze. "It's all right, Sarah. Come in," Marcus said gently. Sarah looked at Evelyn confused. "Sir?" Evelyn just nodded. "Sarah," Marcus said, "I wanted to talk to you. What happened earlier? That wasn't your fault. But I tried to move you. I messed it up," she stammered. "You were put in an impossible situation," Marcus said. "Our training failed you. We have a Platinum Voyager program that teaches our most obnoxious customers that they are gods. And we have training that tells you to de-escalate by any means. That's a conflict. You were caught in the middle. I'm the one who should be apologizing to you." Sarah stared at him. Who are you?" Evelyn put a hand on her shoulder. "This is Mr. Marcus Thorne, Sarah. He is Austria Airlines." Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. Her face went sheet white. "Oh my God. Oh my God. I tried to move. The owner. To the galley. I'm going to be fired." "You are absolutely not going to be fired," Marcus said, his voice firm but kind. "You're going to be the first person to go through our new Project Sentinel training. You're going to teach other new attendants how to handle men like Vance. You're going to be an example of why we need to change." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. "Thank you, sir. Thank you." "Now," Marcus said, his tone shifting back to business. "Evelyn, my CEO, Julian Croft, should be on the ground. He got your message. He responded, code understood, executing, 5 minutes after I sent it," Evelyn said. "Good." Marcus looked at his watch. "We land in 2 hours. That's enough time for Julian to make the necessary arrangements. Get me the passenger details for Vance, not just his name. I want his company, his full flight history, his complaint history. Everything. It's all on the crew manifest tablet," Evelyn said. "Excellent. Get it for me." For the next hour in the cramped rear galley, standing over a tray of bread rolls and miniature soda cans, the billionaire owner of Austria Airlines and his senior flight attendant conducted a deep data dive on Arthur Vance. The picture it painted was even uglier than Marcus had thought. Vance flew twice a month. He had, in the last year, filed 19 separate complaints. 3 complaints were about unclean, non-white flight attendants. 4 were about the poor English of gate agents. 12 were demands for refunds for minor service failures, almost all of which had been granted in the form of travel vouchers. "We've been paying him to be a racist," Marcus said, his voice hard. "We've been subsidizing his bigotry. This isn't just a training failure. This is a moral failure. And it stops today." He handed the tablet back to Evelyn. "Thank you, Evelyn. Now let's get this bird on the ground." He walked back to his seat. Vance was now finally asleep, his mouth open, snoring loudly. Marcus sat down, squeezed between the snoring bigot and the sleeping professor. He closed his eyes not to sleep, but to visualize. He visualized the conversation to come. He visualized the look on Vance's face. And for the first time that day, Marcus Thorne allowed himself a very small, very cold smile. The landing was smooth. The Airbus A350's wheels kissed the runway at London Heathrow with barely a shudder. As the plane taxied toward the terminal, the familiar post-flight ritual began. The ding of the seatbelt sign turning off, the rustle of jackets, the click-clack of overhead bins being opened. Arthur Vance was instantly awake. He was on his feet before the plane had even docked, grabbing his silver Rimowa from the bin. He was back to being the most important man in the world, shoving his way into the aisle, trying to get 1 foot ahead of Dr. Reed. "Stay back," he muttered, using his suitcase as a battering ram. Then the captain's voice came over the intercom. It was calm, but with an unusual edge. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to London. We've just docked at the gate. However, due to a specific security request from ground control, we ask that all passengers please return to your seats and remain seated. I repeat, all passengers must return to your seats. We will be deplaning by row and only when instructed. Cabin crew, please secure the doors." A collective groan went up from the cabin. Vance was incandescent. "This is unbelievable," he shouted, throwing his suitcase back into the bin. "A security request. What did he—" He jabbed a thumb back at Marcus, who was still calmly seated. "Call in a bomb threat when he didn't get his way." "Sir, please sit down," Evelyn said, walking up the aisle. "This is your fault," he hissed at her. "You and your final warning. You probably reported me." "Well, I'm reporting you. This is a disgrace. I'm going to miss my car." The cabin door opened, but instead of the usual flood of passengers out, 2 people stepped in. One was a uniformed officer from the Heathrow Metropolitan Police. The other was a man who looked like he had been carved from granite and dressed in a £10,000 Savile Row suit. He was tall, silver-haired, and radiated an aura of absolute, crushing authority. This was Julian Croft, the CEO of Airlines. Vance didn't recognize him. He just saw a suit blocking his exit. Julian Croft walked down the aisle, his eyes scanning the rows. He didn't look at Marcus. He stopped at row 12. "Mr. Arthur Vance." Julian's voice was a British baritone that could shatter glass. Vance, seeing the police officer, suddenly looked nervous, but his arrogance quickly reasserted itself. "Yes. What is this? I'm in a hurry." "Mr. Vance, I'm Julian Croft, CEO of Astria Group. We need you to come with us." Vance's expression changed instantly. A slimy, sycophantic grin spread across his face. "Julian." "My God, Arthur Vance. We spoke on the phone once about that terrible flight to Singapore. You're here to meet me. I told you I was a friend." He elbowed Marcus. See that service?" Julian Croft's face remained a mask of stone. "Dr. Isabella Reed." Dr. Reed looked up, terrified. "Yes. We need you to accompany us as well. You've been identified as a witness to a serious in-flight incident." "Good," Vance boomed. "She'll tell you this lunatic in 12B threatened me." Julian finally turned his gaze to Marcus. His eyes were cold, but there was a flicker of something. "And Marcus Thorne." "That's me," Marcus said, standing up. "Please, all three of you, come with me." This was not the VIP welcome Vance had imagined. They were being escorted. Evelyn managed the deplaning, directing them into the jet bridge, where 2 more airport security personnel were waiting. "Julian." "What is this?" Vance asked, his voice losing its bravado, a note of whiny panic creeping in. I think there's been a mistake. I'm the victim here. This man," he pointed at Marcus, "was belligerent, and that flight attendant, he pointed at Evelyn. She threatened me. She threatened to divert the plane." "Your concerns have been noted." "Mr. Vance," Julian said smoothly, "we're going somewhere private to discuss them. This way." They were not led into the bustling terminal. They were led down a sterile, unmarked corridor, through a security door, and into a small private elevator. "Where are we going?" Dr. Reed asked, her voice trembling. "The Astria Founders Lounge," Julian said. Vance preened. "The Founders Lounge? Oh, I've heard of this. Very exclusive. About time I got the recognition I deserve." Marcus Thorne, the actual founder, said nothing. The elevator opened into a room that was the antithesis of a public airport lounge. It was silent. It was decorated with priceless modern art. There was no buffet, no bar. There was just a long, dark mahogany table. Seated at the table was a woman in a severe suit holding a pen. She was the head of Astria's European Legal Council. "Please sit," Julian said, gesturing to the 3 chairs. Vance, Marcus, and Dr. Reed sat down. The 2 security guards stood by the door. Vance immediately went on the offensive. "Right, Julian. I am glad we are finally handling this. This flight was without question the worst experience of my life. I was harassed by this passenger," he pointed at Marcus, "and threatened by your staff. I demand a full refund, 10 million air miles in compensation, and I want that woman Evelyn fired." Julian Croft sat down at the head of the table. He steepled his fingers. He looked at the lawyer who clicked her pen. "Thank you for that, Arthur," Julian said. "Dr. Reed, our flight crew's report, states that Mr. Vance used racially abusive language toward Mr. Thorne. Is that accurate?" Vance scoffed. "She's his friend. They were probably in this together. Dr. Reed, a tenured professor of history, was not a woman to be trifled with." Her fear evaporated, replaced by academic fury. "Mr. Croft," she said, her voice clear and strong. "Mr. Vance called Mr. Thorne a welfare case. He said, and I quote, 'People like you should be grateful to be on the plane.' He said he was being harassed by a diversity ticket. He then called me an old hag, and Sarah, the flight attendant, an idiot. He was belligerent, abusive, and yes, explicitly racist. This man," she looked at Marcus, "was a perfect gentleman. He endured a 6-hour barrage of hate." The room was silent. Vance's face was purple. This is slander. It's lies. You can't prove any of it." Julian smiled. "We don't have to." "What do you mean you don't have to?" Vance stammered. "This is a he said, she said situation. And I am the Platinum Voyager." My word. My money means more than theirs. Julian Croft leaned forward, his polished cufflinks glinting under the recessed lighting. Mr. Vance, let me be very clear. Your word means nothing to us. You see, we've been compiling your file for the last 2 hours. He motioned to the lawyer, who slid a thick binder across the table. Arthur Vance, Julian began reading from a sheet. In the last 12 months, you have cost Austria Airlines $42,000 in service recovery vouchers. You have been flagged by 14 different crews for belligerent and abusive behavior. You have on 3 occasions used language our Human Resources Department has classified as hate speech against our staff. We've been tolerating you, Mr. Vance, because, as you so loudly pointed out, you spend money. He closed the binder. But that tolerance ends today. As of this moment, your Platinum Voyager status is permanently revoked. Vance laughed, a high-pitched, hysterical sound. Revoked you can't. I'm your best customer. No, Julian said. You're our worst. You are also, as of this moment, permanently banned from Austria Airlines and all our code-share partners. For life. Vance's jaw dropped. The reality was beginning to sink in like cold water. Banned for life over him. He pointed his finger, trembling at Marcus. Over a nobody in economy. Who the hell is he anyway? Your diversity hire, your secret shopper. Julian Croft looked at Marcus. The 2 men shared a look that spanned a 20-year business partnership. Arthur, Julian said, savoring the moment. You are a consultant. Yes, you consult on market value, on worth. Yes, Vance Consulting. I'm very successful. Then you've made a catastrophic valuation error, Julian said. You assumed the man in the simple pullover was worth less than the man in the Patek Philippe. Vance just stared, confused. Vance, Julian said, his voice dropping to a theatrical hush. I am the CEO of this airline. I am an employee. I run the day-to-day. But I am not the owner. He gestured with an open palm toward Marcus. Mr. Vance, I'd like to formally introduce you to Marcus Thorne. He is the founder, the chairman, and the 100% majority owner of the entire Austria Global Aviation Group. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the sound of a man's entire world view collapsing. Vance swiveled in his chair. He looked at Marcus, at his simple black pullover, at his calm, watchful eyes. No, Vance whispered. That's not possible. That's a trick. He's in economy, Marcus Thorne finally spoke. His voice wasn't loud, but it filled the room. I am Mr. Vance. It's the best way to see the company as it truly is. And today, I saw a lot. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the A350 that had been his prison for the last 7 hours. I saw a junior flight attendant, Sarah, who was terrified into submission because our corporate culture taught her that a platinum Voyager was more important than a human being's dignity. I saw a senior attendant, Evelyn, who was a consummate professional. I saw a passenger, Dr. Reed, who showed courage when she didn't have to. He turned back to face Vance. And I saw you. You are the rot, Mr. Vance. The rot that grows when money is valued over decency. You didn't just harass me. You harassed my staff. You abused my passengers. You, Marcus said, his voice hardening, are a liability. Vance was trying to speak, but no sound was coming out. He was for the first time in his life completely and totally powerless. You. I'll sue, he finally managed to squeak. I'll sue you. I'll tell the world racist airline defamation. You set me up. Sue us." Julian laughed, a genuinely amused barking laugh. "Miss Vance, our lawyer here," he gestured to the woman, "has already drawn up a countersuit for harassment of a crew for passenger endangerment and for being you. But I don't think it will come to that." "Why?" Vance whispered, his face a mask of defeated, blotchy terror. "Because we're not the only ones you upset today," Marcus said. "This isn't just about being banned from an airline. That's not karma. That's just a consequence. You, Mr. Vance, deserve karma." Vance looked confused. What are you talking about?" Julian Croft smiled and picked up his phone. "Mr. Vance, your consultancy. Vance Consulting. We looked you up. Your entire business, your entire success is tied to one single client." Julian's eyes glittered. "The Kensingdale Group." The name hit Arthur Vance like a physical blow. He physically recoiled, his face turning from purple to a sickly pale grey. "The Kensingdale Group?" Dr. Reed asked, confused. "They're a massive global private equity firm," Marcus explained, not taking his eyes off Vance. "And Vance Consulting's $5 million annual contract with them is, according to public filings, 90% of his revenue." How do you know that?" Vance whispered. "Because," Julian said, pressing a button on the conference phone, "the founder and CEO of the Kensingdale Group, Robert Harrison, also happens to sit on our board of directors." A new voice, crisp and cold, filled the room from the speakerphone. "Arthur." Vance looked at the speakerphone as if it were a snake. Mr. Harrison, sir. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. I don't believe there has been, Arthur." Robert Harrison's voice crackled. "I've been on this call for the last 10 minutes. Julian, is the audio from the cabin report available?" "It is Robert," Julian said. The lawyer pressed play on a device. The room filled with the tinny, awful sound of Arthur Vance's voice, recorded by a crew member's discreet cabin device. "People like you should be grateful you're even on the plane. A diversity ticket? Put him with the rest of the cargo. Shut up, you old hag." The sound clicked off. The silence in the room was deafening. "Mr. Harrison, I can explain." Vance pleaded, fat tears of panic rolling down his cheeks. I was under stress. I was provoked. This man, he threatened me." "Shut up, Arthur." Harrison's voice snapped. "Just shut up. The Kensingdale Group has a zero-tolerance ethics clause, not just for ourselves, but for our suppliers. You are a supplier, and you have just proven yourself to be a moral and financial liability. Sir, please. Your $5 million contract is hereby terminated, effective immediately. We are invoking the moral turpitude clause. Our legal team will be in touch with yours to claw back the last quarter's payment, as you clearly obtained it while being, you." No, Vance screamed, finally breaking. He stood up, knocking his chair over. "You can't. That's my life. You're ruining my life." "You did that yourself, Mr. Vance," Marcus said, his voice quiet. "You built your life on the assumption that your money made you untouchable." "You were wrong." Vance lunged. He lunged at Marcus. He never made it. The two security guards, who had been silent statues, moved with lightning speed. They had Vance's arms pinned behind his back and had him in a compliance hold before he'd taken 2 steps. "Get him out," Julian said, bored. "This isn't over," Vance shrieked, his voice muffled as he was dragged toward the door. I'll destroy you, all of you. You'll never fly in this town again." The door hissed shut, and he was gone. The room was quiet again. Julian Croft smoothed his tie. "Well, that was distasteful. Robert, thank you." "Not at all, Julian," the voice on the speakerphone replied. "Marcus, my apologies. I'm embarrassed we had a man like that on our payroll." "He's not your fault, Robert," Marcus said. "He was a bug in the system. We're debugging." "Good to hear. Julian, I'll see you at the board meeting Thursday. We'll discuss the Kensingdale-Astria partnership for the new carbon-neutral fuel initiative." "Looking forward to it, Robert." The line clicked off. Julian, Marcus, and Dr. Reed were left. Dr. Reed looked shell-shocked. I feel like I just stepped into a movie." Marcus turned to her, his entire demeanor softening. The cold CEO was gone, replaced by the kind man from the plane. "Dr. Isabella Reed," he said, "I cannot thank you enough for what you did. You spoke up when you had every reason to stay silent. You are the kind of passenger Astria should be rewarding." Julian stepped forward. "Doctor, read as a profound apology for your experience. Your flight today has been refunded. Furthermore, we are granting you 10 million complimentary air miles and lifetime Founders Circle status, our real top tier. You will fly first class on us for the rest of your life." Dr. Reed was speechless. I don't know what to say." "Just say thank you," Marcus smiled. "And yes, we have a car waiting to take you anywhere in London." "Thank you," she said, finding her voice. "Thank you, Mr. Thorne." "Marcus, please." She shook his hand and was escorted out by the lawyer, leaving Julian and Marcus alone. Julian let out a long breath and loosened his tie. Well, that was a $5 million debooking. Not bad for a 6-hour flight. How was economy boss? "The legroom was better than I remembered," Marcus said, looking out the window at the tarmac. "But the company was terrible." He turned to his CEO. "Julian, I want Project Sentinel active in 90 days. I want Evelyn promoted to Director of In-Flight Training. I want Sarah to be her first student. And I want the Platinum Voyager program completely overhauled. From now on, we reward decency, not just spend." "Got it." Julian Croft grinned. "Got it, Marcus. Now, for God's sake, let's get you out of those clothes and into a proper suit. We've got an acquisition to finalize." Marcus picked up his simple backpack, the one that held his notebooks and the future of his airline. "One more thing, Julian," he said as they walked out of the Founders Lounge and into the real world. "What's that? Make sure my return flight is first class. I've had enough ground-level experience for 1 week. They say karma isn't real, but on Flight 212, it just landed with first-class honors. Arthur Vance lost his status, his airline, and his multi-million-dollar contract in the span of an hour. He learned the hard way that the true measure of a person isn't the color of their skin or the price of their ticket, but their character. And his was bankrupt. Marcus Thorne proved that real power doesn't need to shout. It just needs to be. What did you think of Arthur's spectacular downfall? Do you believe he got what he deserved? We see stories like this in our world every day, where bullies think their status makes them untouchable. This story is a reminder that you never know who you're talking to. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this dose of real-life karma, please hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to see justice served, and make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a story. Also,